All right, so I've currently got Paul on the phone. He's another musician that reached out about the interview series. So I'm going to go ahead and give him the chance to introduce himself.
Hi, my name is Paul Hyun. I am currently living in the Los Angeles County of California. I have been playing the cello for over 25 years, and I recently moved here during the pandemic. And like other musicians, life was pretty tough, and things are starting to pick up finally. But I'm very grateful for this opportunity to be interviewed for this podcast. So thank you very much, Alex. And I look forward to letting you all know more about me.
Excellent. Of course. So I always like to start in the beginning with these interviews. So, give me some background about, when you first found music and what about it inspired you to want to pursue it and participate in it?
Sure. So, for starters, before cello, when I was 4 years old up until 8, I started with piano. So both my sister and myself, we both were born with what's called a perfect pitch ear. So it gives you the ability to listen to things and then you can recognize the key and name notes without music, basically, just by listening by ear. And we started with piano first. And my sister actually started with the violin and piano at the same time. She started violin when she was 3. She's been doing it for 33, 34 years now. But while we were very gifted in like music, like when we were earlier on when we were younger, I didn't start pursuing the music or making the choice to get into music until I saw my sister perform with the Dallas Symphony Orchestra when she was only 11 years old.
Wow.
Because I've been a huge fan of my sister watching her perform throughout her years of violin playing. When I saw her perform, I made the decision that day that I would pursue music as well. So then I picked up the cello at age 9. And then from there began my long and very tiring journey of going through teacher after teacher to find the best teachers. And 25 years later, here I am.
Sure. So what would you say was the main motivating factor to pick up cello? Was it, watching your sister on violin? You felt you kind of wanted to go down that road? Just give me a little bit of insight on why you went that way.
Sure, absolutely. So to give a little insight about that, so I kind of tried a little bit of the violin and didn't quite work out for me, and also part of the reason why I think I didn't do the same instrument as my sister was my parents wanted to avoid sibling rivalry and competitiveness, because there are a lot of siblings out there, that pursue music and have the same instrument and then the parents complain or compare. And we just wanted to avoid that. So one day we went to a music shop and then my parents and I saw the cello. So they said, why don't you give that a try? So I was like, okay. So I see this tiny little miniature, bigger violin instrument and I sit down with it. I have no idea what I'm doing with it. But then right when I just tried to play a little bit or mess around with it, my parents were like, this is the instrument for you. And then I was like, from that point, I was like, okay. And then from that point, I had my first lessons when I was 9 and I grew to love it very much. I mean, granted, it's a piece of work to travel with, but
sure, definitely.
It's a beautiful instrument. It's the closest thing to a human voice. So that's why I really enjoy playing the cello over the violin.
Interesting. So did you do all of your lessons like outside of school or did you participate in like concert band or anything like that?
Oh yes, of course. I went through all of it. So let's put it this way. I've moved at least 8 states throughout my childhood.
Okay.
Interestingly enough, a lot of those states we moved was partially because of, dad's work, but it was also partially because my parents wanted to find the best musical environment for me and my sister.
Sure.
So I was born in Colorado and I started cello when we moved to Texas. And then from Texas, we went to Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Michigan, California. And then I went to college in Ohio and I came back to California. And the most important thing is I went through all the different kind of youth orchestras, right? Even outside of school. Like because when my parents first started trying to support us with music, they thought they had crazy kids because they had no idea how to support music kids, right? They never knew what they were getting themselves into. They're like, oh, our kids are a little weird. And then they got instruction and found out from other people in our actual private teachers what it means to support us for music. So then they told them that you need to get private instruction outside of school. You need to be enrolled in a music program in school, and you also need to be enrolled in music programs outside of school. So I did all of it. Like probably my most intensive years was probably middle school to high school because I was in youth orchestras, I was in private lessons, and I was also at the San Francisco Conservatory of Music for pre-college, going through all the music theory, all the way up to advanced preparation. So my Saturdays were completely booked with youth orchestra. My weekdays was lessons and rehearsals and concerts. So yeah.
Okay. And then you said that you went to school in Ohio. Was that your school of choice that you went to?
Yes, because I met that teacher who I wanted to study with during a music festival that I auditioned for. That was in Cleveland, Ohio. It's called Encore School for Strings.
Okay.
And when I first went to that camp, the teacher really enjoyed working with me, and he invited me for an audition to the school. So that's how I got into that school. And he was the teacher of my choice too. So
Awesome. So I would imagine, during the college formative years and then, once you started to approach graduation day, you start to look into the future of, where you want to go with it. What were some of those ideas that you had there of what you wanted to do once you were out of school with the cello?
so not gonna lie to you, like at first, like I had a lot of pressure when I went to this school to try to follow in my sister's footsteps as a freelance performer. Because, growing up, I really didn't like practicing a lot. And of course, my students don't know this, but, who does really like practicing, right? But over time, after I really started not liking practice when I went off to college, that's when I really got into practicing and realizing the benefit and the beauty of how much fun it could be. And so I went through a lot of teaching pedagogy with my teacher. He put me into teaching pedagogy starting from my, I believe, sophomore year of college. So he basically started teaching me how I can be a teacher or a teaching assistant. And while doing that, I really enjoyed helping other cello students there that already were, needing some coachings and things. And they asked me, just as a friend. And I really loved doing it. And, the thing is I've always been good with kids too, growing up. Like kids would follow me everywhere. You'd be surprised. Like I'm like a magnet. Kids will just chase after me anywhere. So when I graduated, I made the decision not to follow the path that my parents originally thought that I should follow, like my sister, but I wanted to be a teacher because I believe the most joy for me as a teacher is seeing the smiles on students' faces when they progress or when they reach the goal that they want. And it's that I'm the one that helps nurture that. So I decided to pursue to be a teacher, and I have no regrets.
Okay. And so going down that teaching route, I'm not really familiar with what it takes to be a music teacher. Did you also have to take any sort of second degree in, teaching?
No, see, that's the interesting thing. So most teachers, at least that I know that are my colleagues, they all have master's degrees, but that's only if you want to teach in a university setting. And of course, obviously, pay is better if you teach in a college or university, right? But
Sure.
that's not the case for everybody. What inspired me not to pursue a master's degree was my own teacher was only a bachelor degree when he got his job at Cleveland Institute of Music. But he won every principal cello audition back when they first opened up, the New York, Philadelphia, Cleveland, LA. And he picked the Cleveland Orchestra, and he was there for like 34 years before he retired from principal chair. So he told me the key to being a great teacher is investing in your student and truly trying to understand them. Don't try to force them to be something they're not. Really understand them in a personal level. And interestingly enough, actually, Alex, like because of that motivation I got from my teacher about how to be a good teacher, even me as a freelancer currently, which is what I'm doing also on top of teaching, my music seems to captivate people from the heart because my teacher said he always taught from his heart, not from his mind. So that's pretty much what it takes to be a good teacher. You just have to teach from the heart. That's the real truth of it.
Sure. And so would you say that you kind of, since you have that connection to it and you do look at it very personally like that, do you prefer like the institutional environment to teach in, or do you prefer a more like private setting?
I, for a long time, for about 18 years, I taught privately after I graduated. But I realized there was a huge fluctuation in how the stability of the living situation, what that is, because when students leave without telling you, or they just come and go, you have no protection of cancellation and things. So I'm actually more aiming towards an institution, which currently I'm actually a teacher at the OC Music and Dance Academy, which is a very good music institution that actually we've been auditioning students to prepare for actual college conservatory level. So it's the kind of position that I've always wanted.
Sure, very cool. So you briefly mentioned there that you do also do freelance work. What sort of freelance work are you doing?
So I got into doing a lot of improvisation because while I was in college, I took like 2.5 to 3 years of jazz improvisation. I was the only cellist who was ballsy enough to do it, I guess, at the time, because everybody else was like a saxophone, brass, piano, or violinist. And using that improv, I started developing my own like my own ways of creating like pop-in music covers that people are familiar with. Like I use a loop
Mhm.
station to do it. So when I freelance, my shows basically consist of me playing a lot of famous covers like Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons, Michael
Mhm.
Jackson, One Republic, things like that. But all the tracks on that looper
Mhm.
are done by me. So I basically create all my backtrackings from my own from scratch. And
Awesome.
then I also create my own looper originalities as well using an electric cello.
You're probably familiar with the guys from Two Cellos then, or at least
Yes,
know
some of
of
my
them.
music colleagues went to school with some of them.
Okay. Yeah,
So,
I went to one of
yes.
their shows a couple years back, and it was a pretty good show.
Oh yeah, those guys are intense. They totally extend the boundary of cello in the classical realm for sure, and they
Yeah,
break a lot of their bows.
definitely. So going forward, 5, 10 years from now, where do you want to see your musicianship? Do you want to, accentuate more on the freelancing side, or do more of like the teachings? Where would you like to see your career in music go?
So to be honest, Alex, I've been giving this really a lot of train of thought, and if I really had to be honest, I would say I would like to be best of both worlds. I would like to be the best teacher that inspires students from the heart, who also motivates students or any musician who believes that they cannot be a musician to instill hope in them using my music when I freelance. So basically, my goal is to be a teacher and a performer that captivates everybody by the heart, because that's really what makes music special. When you can connect with the heart, then people really listen to what you play.
Absolutely. And you mentioned prior that cello is the closest to the human voice, which matches perfectly with that vision, too, of
Hmm.
bringing out the heart. And then, somewhere in there is a not so veiled metaphor of pulling heartstrings and whatnot. So we'll just leave that one on the table. Um, what are some of your favorite memories of participating in music, whether it was something like motivational or a lesson you learned along the way?
I think my most favorite parts about being involved in music for me was playing with other musicians, collaborating from anything from jazz to Brazilian tango to to classical, like just collaborating with so many different musicians and just seeing how much different palettes of musical color that we can create together and just how much our personalities can intertwine and connect, when we play together. I think that's one of my most favorite things to do.
Okay. Does anything specific reach out, or just kind of that general idea?
Um, okay, so for example, actually, this is actually also in regards to an event that I'll let you all know about later that I'm organizing as well. So there's this thing called the Cello Madness Congress that was started a decade ago up in Northern California, where I'm originally from. I met this guy named Joey Chang, who's a very good beatboxing cellist. So he beatboxes and loops with his cello and creates like this insane funk and rock style cello playing. And he gathers cellists from different backgrounds and abilities to play at these events, at these venues. And basically, we come together on the stage, and one person just starts making up some kind of a random improvisation, and then we all have to develop based on what we heard. It's like a game. And like, I think playing at a cello congress for me was the most exciting collab thing from a cellist perspective that I've ever done, that I will always cherish, because what I liked about this cello congress especially was it's designed especially for the cellist to really expand their horizons and be as creative as they want without anybody judging them for who they are. And that's probably one of my most favorite memories of when it comes to collabing with musicians that I enjoy the most.
Yeah, that's a very cool concept. I like it.
Yeah.
So along those lines, where can people find you and listen to your stuff? Get details on the upcoming event that you have.
So people can follow me through my either Facebook or the Cello Congress Facebook page, which is pretty much you just type up Cello Madness Congress on Facebook. And then on that page, we will link up all the events that we have coming up for SoCal as well as Northern California. We're actually creating a SoCal branch, actually. It's the first of its kind. And I'm organizing a Cello Madness Congress, bringing cellists from Las Vegas and Northern California to do a really interesting collab project and performance. And also, my Instagram tag is at Taekwon. So, like it's spelled like TAEKWON with cello. The reason for that name is because I'm also extremely passionate about martial arts and teaching self defense for free for the communities. So that's why my Instagram tag has both cello and Taekwon in it. So that's how you guys can find out about any shows that I have or any music that I'm up creating. But someday along the line, I will hopefully create a Spotify one day when I feel ready.
So you also mentioned the Cello Congress that you've been a part of, and that you also have an event coming up for. Did you want to offer any more details about that?
Yes. So if anyone is interested, like you can look for this also on my social media pages as well. There is an event happening May 21st at the OC Music and Dance Academy in Irvine, California. It will also be live streamed. So wherever you go to purchase the tickets, there is a lower price ticket for those of you who cannot attend in person. It will be featuring Cello Joe himself, the founder of the whole Congress, Cello Doll from Las Vegas, Ashley Ung on cello, and then myself. We will be playing a mixture of classical to funk to pop to improvisation. It's going to be a one of a kind of event. This is the first of its kind in SoCal. Hopefully, we would love to see you either there in person or streamed. But like I said, it's May 21st at 7 p.m. at the OC Music and Dance. Look for all the details on my social media.
So I always like to give the person that I'm interviewing the opportunity to, put out a message, something that, you feel you vibe with. Yeah, what you got?
Well, what I can say is, to be honest, from all my music experience and from what I've observed, is the best advice and thing that I'll say that I'll stick by always is always play from the heart. And most importantly, your status in the music world and your background does not give you the right to be a mean person to others. Be respectful to all musicians, regardless of their level, because we're all passionate about the same thing. And if it just takes somebody with high criteria to make somebody else discourage themselves from playing music, then they miss the whole point. Then you miss the whole point of what music really is about. It's about equality and sharing our gifts with everyone. So that's the advice I would say that I would stand by.